Thank you. All right. Well, let me first start by saying that I think a lot of us got into this industry for the same reason. We love games, and we want to be a part of making them. I know that's why I got into it. And that instinct usually points us towards one of two paths. Either join an established studio or try to ship your own indie game. But my experience has taught me that a more resilient career in this industry isn't focused only on the players, but also on serving the people sitting right next to you, your fellow developers, artists, and designers. So today I want to show you how solving problems for this community can compound into something genuinely sustainable. A career that doesn't rise and fall with a single studio or a single game. So first, who am I? Well, my name is Ali. I've been a software engineer for over 13 years, mainly as a web developer. But I've always wanted a career in games, and I thought that it was not attainable for me. It was too difficult, I don't have the skills needed, and it will just have to remain a hobby. And that all changed 4 years ago when I started a YouTube channel to teach gameplay programming in Unreal Engine, which has now become my full-time job, supporting me financially and allowing me to work on my own indie game with a small, talented team who are with me here today. Now, I've made a career from helping people, solving problems, and sharing knowledge, but I'm not here today to tell you to be a YouTuber or go into education. I'm here to talk to you about how you can leverage your skills to create value for this community and how that value compounds into career opportunities. And this is what I call the community flywheel. To illustrate this flywheel effect, I first need to give you context on my game dev journey so you know where I'm coming from. I started learning how to make games about 5 years ago, and it started as a hobby. I just wanted to use my skills in software engineering for something other than making websites. And this was about the time Unreal Engine 5 was coming out. I was following the news, and I got super excited when it was released. So I downloaded it and spent pretty much every free minute learning random things, some of the things you can see here. And I instantly became obsessed with the game development process. At the time, I wasn't trying to start a business or shift careers. I was actually pretty happy with my career. I was an engineering manager at Marktplaats, and game development was just a hobby. The shift came when I posted my first video on YouTube. It wasn't a tutorial, it wasn't a devlog, it was a 40-second clip of a new enemy I made for my game, and I was just proud of it, so I wanted to share it. With no expectations, and I didn't think anyone would find it. It was more just for me. But to my surprise, I got 2 comments on that video asking for a tutorial. And I was curious what they wanted to learn, because give tutorial bro doesn't really tell you much. So I replied and asked more questions and learned that they want to see how I made this energy shield. So I made my first ever tutorial just for them, how to make an energy shield in Unreal Engine. Very niche topic for a very niche audience. Now, did this video explode, go viral, make me rich? Well, of course not. It barely got 100 views in a month, but it did get 2 more comments and 6 subscribers. And those were the beginning of my community. So then I started asking myself, what value can I add to that community? What problems are they facing, and what skills do I have that can solve these problems? Well, I didn't know much about making games, but I was a good software engineer. I've been doing it for a decade, and I knew how to teach. I was a programming tutor for 7 years as well. So I sat down with a pen and paper, and I started brainstorming ideas that fall within my skill set and would benefit the community. And I came up with the idea for my first tutorial series. 22 videos, averaging 45 minutes each, on how to make smart enemies in Unreal Engine. And it was a big bet. It was a huge amount of work. I did it next to my full-time job, and I had no idea whether anyone would even see it. But I knew I was adding value, because I personally wished that these lessons had existed when I was learning Unreal Engine. And also, my tiny community at the time told me that they wanted this. So I spent the next 7 months trying to release a video every week or two, and that tutorial series grew my community more than I could have ever imagined. But more importantly, it grew my skills in gameplay programming dramatically, because I went from learning random things for fun to learning the specific things needed to solve my community's problems, which also reflected the industry's problems. Soon after, I started treating this as a career. I quit my job and focused full-time on growing a business. But my story is just one version of this. Let me show you what other paths look like when following a similar process. So sharing knowledge is a clear way of adding value, but I've seen many other ways where people use this effect successfully. So let's talk about 2 of them, and I'll let you imagine the rest. One way is through creating tools that solve specific problems, and we'll call this person the toolsmith. And the second is creating digital assets that are customizable, and we'll call this person the craftsman. So the toolsmith is a person who understands a painful part of the development workflow and creates tools to make that process easier, faster, or more accessible. And I'll give you a very high-level example just to illustrate the process. Imagine you're a programmer working on your own game, and every build, every time you package the game, it takes 25 minutes, because there is a huge amount of unused assets being packaged as well. So after struggling with this problem for weeks, you decide to build a tool that automatically scans the project and removes any unused assets. You think to yourself, well, others must be facing this problem as well, so you decide to share it on GitHub and just make it open source. Some people find it, maybe an indie dev struggling with the same problem, and it saves them gigabytes of build size and hours of iteration time, and they love it. So they start making requests for features, bug fixes, and improvements. And now people are benefiting from value that you added that wasn't there before. That's the beginning of your community. So you keep refining it based on your community's suggestions and requests, and you create a pro version and charge maybe €5 for it. Now you have your first revenue stream. Of course, this is just a very simple example, and there's a lot more to the process, many more important details I'm glossing over, and we will go into that. But first, let's see the craftsman example that you might recognize if you used Unreal Engine. So the craftsman is a person that is highly specialized and has very good skills in a specific field and can create assets that others can't create themselves, or it will take them too much time. For example, you are an animator working on yet another bipedal locomotion system. And after you've created the animations, you still have to do the incredibly difficult and tedious work of making sure all the states blend well together, your IK setup works for this new character, and many, many more repetitive tasks. So you decide to create your own framework that streamlines this whole process so you can just plug in your custom animations into it. Again, you share it online, put it on the marketplace, make some videos showcasing it since it's pretty visual, and with time and effort, it gets discovered. People ask for more, you keep maintaining it, adding features, creating a Discord server to support people with problems or bugs they may have, and eventually it becomes the de facto plugin for advanced locomotion Unreal Engine. Saves designers an insane amount of time, and you've made a ton of money off of it. So you decide to do something crazy. You make your biggest update yet, and you open source it and give it away for free. Shortly after, Epic Games hires you full-time as a senior technical animator to work on core animation systems. Sounds a bit far-fetched? Well, this is a true story about Caleb Longmire, the creator of the ALS plugin, which is used in a ton of games, most notably and recently in Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And of course, this is an extreme example of a huge success story. And again, I'm not showing you the friction, the failures, and the effort it takes to get your work discovered. But what I want to illustrate with these two examples is the process itself and the value that you add to this community creates opportunities and grows the community further. This is the flywheel effect. So let's take a look at it in detail and discuss the points of friction. The wheel starts with your skills, the unique combination of things you know you can do, plus the things that you know you can learn. You use those problems, you use those skills to solve a specific problem for a specific group. And solving that problem publicly grows a community around your work. And that community teaches you what to build next. Then the cycle repeats. Except this time you know your audience, you understand their problems, and your skills have also improved. So every spin compounds on the last one. And that's mainly it. The three examples I've shown you so far were following this cycle, but you don't even have to stick to one. And actually, the most sustainable positions I've seen are people who started with one path and naturally expanded into others. I personally started as an educator, and that is still my main focus, but my community eventually needed tools, so I built them. They needed assets, so I created them. I wasn't a toolsmith or a craftsman when I started, but the community pulled me in those directions, and I knew that I could learn those skills quickly to solve their problems. So the path you start with is just your entry point. Where you go from there depends on the community you build, but also depends on what you enjoy doing. Now, let's talk about the friction, because this is the most important part here. I've been painting a pretty picture, just making it sound very easy. Use your skills, fix a problem, get discovered, make money, yay, very easy. But of course, with every step, there are big risks and high chances of failure. So let's see what you can do to mitigate them. I told you that everything starts with your unique skill set. But the main problem I've seen here is that a lot of people don't really understand what their unique skill set is or how to develop it. I guess that most of you sitting here probably like to do something that the person next to you may hate doing. And that thing that you can spend hours and hours doing out of enjoyment and not feel drained is your skill. This doesn't have to be the thing that you're good at right now, but also what you can get good at quickly because you have no problems investing time in learning and improving it. For example, I had zero experience in video editing when I first started, but when learning it, I found the process to be very creative and rewarding, so I could spend countless hours trying to make my videos look better or more professional, and that got added to my skill set and made my videos stand out, versus someone who hates this process and won't invest that time and effort. Now, the second point of friction will come when you're trying to solve the right problem. In the beginning, this process is trial and error. You may have heard of a problem someone's facing, maybe a problem you're facing yourself, but you don't have an audience to inform you. But the biggest mistake you can make here is try to solve for everyone. The more specific your target, the sharper your solution, and the easier it is to reach the right audience. So a tool that solves a specific problem for an indie Unity gameplay programmer will spread much faster in that community than a tool that kinda helps everyone. And also be critical about who actually needs what you're building, because AAA studios have the resources to build everything in-house. They're not your audience. Your audience is the solo dev, the indie team, the AA studio that do rely on the creator ecosystem. And I'll use the example of Sandfall Interactive again, because they've managed to build a great game with a small dev team. And in their GDC talk this year, they said that Clair Obscur uses about 25 external plugins. like Mesh Morpher, Kawaii Physics, LG UI, and ALS, just to name a few. And this is most likely your target audience, studios with these constraints. But your solution shouldn't take away creative freedom. Just like these plugins, it should allow small studios to unleash their full creative power by lowering the cost of quality. So before you build anything, write down one sentence. I'm solving this problem for that group, and be specific. Which brings us to arguably the most important and most difficult step, getting discovered and growing a community. This is sadly where most people quit, because it is incredibly demotivating to pour your heart and soul into something that no one gets to see. But understanding distribution dramatically increases your odds. And the biggest mistake people make here is not understanding that they are now operating in the creator economy, which means you need to understand how social platforms work, how algorithms decide who to show your work to, and how to package your work so it gets attention. And the type of content you create determines who discovers it as well. So for the toolsmith, for example, things like GitHub, Reddit, or any text-based content is probably the best solution. But if you're working on VFX or animations, then you probably want videos or GIFs on a video-first platform. But regardless of the type of content, always remember that the content is not your product. It is your distribution method. That means you use it to reach the right people and not the most amount of people. That's the difference between content for distribution and for content creation. I, for example, had a video with 10,000 views that converted to more paying members than a video with 1 million views, because those 10,000 were Unreal Engine gameplay programmers, and those million were people interested in the game dev process but aren't going to learn it. Now, getting discovered is only half the battle. The other half is what you do when people find you. And one of the most powerful things I did early on was give everything away for free. Every tutorial, every tool, every asset, free. Not because I was being generous, but because nobody knew who I was yet. And free is the easiest way to let my work speak for me before I ask for anything in return. After my first tutorial, I created a Patreon account and uploaded everything to it. And I set it up with a free trial, meaning that someone could subscribe, download everything on day one, and leave without paying a single euro. And some people did exactly that. But a lot of people stayed and paid without even knowing what I will be releasing next, because they already saw value in what I was giving, and they trusted that I will be creating more. Now we reach the final step on our wheel, learning about new problems. Once you reach this step, you've done the hardest part. You got started, you found a problem, you solved it, and it got discovered. Even if by a very small group of people, now the flywheel starts to spin on its own. I noticed this effect halfway through my Smart Enemy series that I showed you in the beginning. I had the whole thing planned out, what I wanted to teach and in what order. But as more people watched, the comments started filling up with requests. And I realized that what they were asking for made more sense for the series than what I had planned. So I adjusted my plan and made the videos that they wanted to see, but still within my skill set. Those videos got more views, more comments, more requests, and somewhere in that loop, I started to understand my audience, what they needed and why my teaching style resonated with them, and things that I could have never figured out just sitting alone with my plan. This is what this step really means. It's not just about finding new problems, it's about developing a feedback loop with your audience that makes every next thing you build more likely to succeed than the thing before. The first spin of this wheel is heavy, but once it gains momentum, you're no longer pushing it alone. Now, let's say you've done this a few times with success. You've made some digital assets or tools or shared knowledge, built trust, and a community willing to pay for your work. Now, you're a business. And I want to be honest about what this actually looks like, because there is a romanticized version that isn't true, or at least it wasn't for me, and that this is not passive income. Everything you make is a product, and your skills are your main asset. That means that you need to maintain your product, fix bugs, offer customer support, and most importantly, you need to keep improving your own skills, learning about new things, and keep solving more complex problems. This is an ongoing process. You keep finding and solving new problems while maintaining the old solutions. But something else also changes. People are now depending on your work. Small studios may be using your tools in production. Developers might be following your videos to learn a new skill. Someone, somewhere, finally solved a problem because of something you made. And that relationship becomes incredibly valuable. Because over time, you're not just building products, but you're building trust with your community. And trust is what makes this entire flywheel work. People return because they trust your expertise, they recommend your work because they trust your quality, and they support your projects because they trust that you genuinely care about solving their problems. But unfortunately, trust alone isn't enough if the platform you built it on disappears. That's why, well, the reason is platforms change, algorithms change, technologies change, and the needs of your community change as well. So diversification becomes so important. The strongest position you can be in is not relying on a single platform, single product, or even a single skill. Instead, you build an ecosystem around your expertise. In my case, this ecosystem ended up taking many different forms. So long-form YouTube videos helped people discover my work. In-depth lessons on Patreon allowed me to explore further topics with paying members who wanted more. Digital products and tools turned my knowledge into things people can buy and use directly. Discord kept me connected with my community, hearing their problems, answering their questions, and just staying in the loop. And one-to-one consultations allowed me to go even deeper into specific problems individuals were facing. And eventually, all of these things together gave me something incredibly valuable: stability. Not because one video went viral, not because one product succeeded, not from a single source of revenue, but because multiple small sources of value started reinforcing each other. In the beginning, I really thought the only way to succeed in this industry was to work on a successful IP or ship my own game. But what I learned is that the industry doesn't only reward great games, it also rewards the people who help others make them. And today, I luckily get to do both. The path I took didn't pull me away from making my own games, it's actually making it possible. That means every problem that I face making my game becomes a lesson I can share with the community, and the flywheel keeps spinning. So what started out as 2 YouTube comments is now a community of thousands of developers helping each other solve problems, and honestly, that is what I'm most proud of. So help your community grow, and you will grow with it.